Alright, so I've got my crate here now, and I've kind of gone in and finished tweaking a lot of the boards individually, but I really only did it for this one front panel here, and then I just sort of duplicated it and flipped it around for this side, and then I just kind of swapped boards and flipped them around for the others, and then up there. I think I went in and I did maybe a few minor tweaks and adjustments just to get everything to fit together kind of how I wanted it, and to add a few unique variations, but mostly every other side is based on this one front panel. And then I just, like I said, swapped boards around, rotated them, flipped them back to front, upside down, left to right, all that. Hmm. So once all that's done and we've got a crate we really like, we should make sure it's all UV'd correctly. So kinda wanted to drag that out, that down, and bring up a UV editor. And what we're going for is something like this. Just row after row after row of wooden planks. So assuming they all have the seams, and they should, if you select them all and unwrap, you will end up with this. Assuming, of course, you want to make sure you've got correct aspect. I'm using angle-based unwrap with a very small margin. And you also want to kind of be sure that they're all facing the same way, because in Substance Painter that's going to make it really easy. We can just throw a wood material on basically, and the wood grain and everything will flow across correctly. And now I guess before we take it in there, I'll show, like, I've worked on the hierarchy a bit, and I've got them all split up into different frames, all with their own wooden planks. And I've got LOD 1, or LOD 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But I'll show that off in a bit. It's not really important right now. For now, we're going to go ahead and take this into Substance Painter. So just make sure all your other objects are turned off, and select every object for the crate. And we're going to export this out as an FBX. And I'm just going to call this crate FBX. I'm going to check selected objects, apply transform, and in geometry make sure you have apply modifiers checked, because what that's going to do is automatically when we export it's going to apply our bevel modifier for us. That way we can always have it on as a modifier. Keeps it more procedural, makes it very easy to reduce the bevel segments or just turn it off entirely to create lower poly LODs. Which is basically the only difference between 0 and 1 is I took the segments from 2 to 1. Then LOD 2, there's no bevel. Then LOD 3 has a decimate modifier to reduce the planks down to as simple as they can be without deforming the silhouette too much. And LOD4 is just a straight up cube. And that's going to be basically our extreme long distance stand-in. But anyway, that's enough about LODs. We want to apply modifiers, apply transform, and selected objects checked, and then export that. And all right. You can see it's here in my file structure. And then we can come here into substance. And we can just drag the FBX in here. And it'll pop up, and you're going to want to select whatever template is appropriate for the game engine you want. I plan on targeting Unreal Engine 4, but if you want to do Unity, just check Unity. Then we can set the document resolution. I'm probably going to do 4K, and don't play with the normal map format. That's dependent on your export engine. Compute tangent space per fragments checked. Just leave everything alone basically except document resolution. Choose your template. Hit OK. Alright, should come in just like this. And now we want to bake our mesh maps. And I want to set the output size to 4K for these. You can work in a lower resolution if you want, or have a lower spec PC, but we're gonna work in 4K for demo purposes. And make sure to check use low poly as high poly, because we're basically just gonna have this one base. I don't think we really need to have a higher poly version, and bake that down. And we want to match by mesh name. So make sure you come down here and check that on. Otherwise, we are probably going to get some pretty horrific texture bleeding. I don't know. Actually, I might leave that on just to see what it does. Ambient occlusion. I think that's fine. We don't need to worry about our ID map. We're not going to have one. Yeah, let's try baking. And I'm not sure this is going to give good results, since I think I did turn on match by always. So I am expecting maybe some texture bleeding. But hey, maybe not. I actually never used that option, and I forget if it even matters if you don't have a high poly version of the mesh. So since this is a simple model, it might not even matter. So I'm going to search in the material section of my panel here for wood. And I think I would kind of like wood rough. I'll try that out. Yeah, okay, it doesn't look like we have any bad texture bleed or anything. Alright, yeah, I'm thinking that must only really matter if you actually have a high poly version of the mesh. Since I guess you do end up with a exact one-to-one bake if you don't have a high poly mesh. But I kind of want the wood grain to go the other way. So I'm going to come here under the wood rough and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So we get the wood grain going the other way now. I kind of think that looks a lot better. And so like right away we've got pretty alright looking crate. You can play with the scale. So maybe like 5 if you want more smaller detail. The higher the scale, the smaller it'll be. Like if I put to 50, you can see it's just tiling kind of over and over again. Maybe you like that, but 128, it's pretty extreme. I'm just going to stick to 1. I think 1 looks correct to me. And now what we want to do is, obviously, we want to start trying to add in some dirt and grime, make this look real. I'm going to come in here and add in a fill layer. And we could try playing with some smart masks, maybe. Like maybe we just want to try kind of simple, but just a dirt smart mask on that fill layer. And yeah, the only issue is our fill layer is white. So let's come down here on, make sure you select the fill layer and not the mask. But come down here and change the base color and make it bright red. I'm going to go for just kind of a really dark gray, I think. And it's kind of blended in nicely there, but like you can see what that's doing if I turn visibility off and on. This makes it look a little dirty. I think the other thing we want to do is adjust the roughness of that layer. Yeah, we want to make it pretty rough. You don't get a lot of light reflecting off dirt generally, so that should be either 1 or close to 1. Definitely not metallic, so that should be 0. Alright. That's okay, but we're gonna want a bit more. So let's see what else we can do. Like, is there any filter that's going to give us dirt more low? Okay, this is gonna give us a lot of dirt in the cracks, it looks like. Yeah, crank the roughness up. If you don't like the look of this, like I think that's maybe a bit much, you can come down here and play with these settings by turning down the curvature. Although I think the AO is going to, yeah, the AO is controlling most of that. And maybe just there. Kinda just want like a hint of dirt and darkness, not a ridiculous build up along every little corner. But I forget which filter it is. Okay, this might be at ground dirt. I know there's one in here that gives a pretty nice bottom up covering. Yeah, this is it. This should give us a pretty good realistic. This crate is just left outside in an alley. It's dirty. All the dirt is, focused near the bottom. So this is an important filter to use for an object like this. Again, I'm just going to set it to some kind of darkish brown or gray. Make sure you crank the roughness up, otherwise it's going to look shiny. That's just not right at all. So crank that roughness. It looks a little solid. Kind of want to see if there's some way I can break this up. Yeah, maybe just this for now. I mean, I want it up higher, but I also don't want the bottom to be entirely covered. Hmm. Maybe I'll put that down there on the bottom. That's okay. This might be one to play with more or less, depending on what you're going after. Yeah, ambient occlusion's not gonna do much there. Maybe here. Kinda like it more here. This looked too solid before. This is just something you can play with quite a bit for a while. You can keep adding fill layers. And maybe this one I'm gonna add a black mask and then add a generator. And there's a dirt generator here. This is another way you can set it up. Maybe this gives you a result you like a bit better. Or at least just something different. It's good to layer these things. You want variation. Variation's going to make it look convincing. It is looking good. I wonder, could I get some nice splatter somehow? Uh, this might be the one I want. Dirt, either maybe dirt spots, but I'm gonna bet dirt splashes. Bet dirt splashes is gonna look really good. Yes, yes, this is what I want. Alright, maybe about there. Just the roughness. I forget if I ever, yeah, I never changed the roughness on the layer with the generator. Okay, now we got these dirt. Although it seems to be duplicating a splash on every side. And that's a bit unfortunate. I do like that look, I'm just not sure I'm a fan of it being about the same on every side. Wonder if there's some way to change If I rotate it, what if I UV project it? Hmm. Alright, I'm thinking maybe we have to UV project. Hmm. But maybe I'll try planar that one. UV project this one. And that gives us some decent little splashes. It basically looks like the way they set this filter up. This applies the color and this so it eats into it. This is just a subtraction layer. Yeah, without this layer it does nothing. So this is actually a pretty simple filter. You could set this up yourself if you just apply a mask, apply some fill layers, then apply the grayscale texture to it. Like something in here. Probably more like one of these. Hmm. Something else you might want to play with is maybe the particles. Because I kind of like the particles for adding sometimes a nice little dynamic little splash of something. Let's make this pretty gray, pretty rough, and try a rain particle. Just kind of drag that along, let that simulate. That's going to add a bit of a top layer of whatever color you set the particle brush. You can see now we've got these little rain marks across the top of our crate here. You could really go hard with that. You could even try perhaps some of these other ones. What would puddle do? Hmm. Maybe not puddle, maybe splat? Hmm. Not really liking that. That looks too repetitive and simple, really. So maybe I'll leave that off. But I think this is pretty okay for now. I think one thing, maybe the last thing I'll play with, is I'll see if I can get some displacement working. I forget exactly where it is. Maybe I'll just change this to high. In the shader settings, I'll change the quality to high. Yep, here it is at the bottom, displacement and tessellation. So I think I'll do by edge length and set the max length as low as it'll go. And then tweak the height, displacement vary. Oh yeah, if you go too far, you're just gonna morph it. See, it can get kind of intense. So if you use it just a bit, doesn't really seem to be bringing anything out of these textures, actually. If I put on, yeah, okay, putting that so it affects normal as well. certainly helped. So, alright, I would say make sure you have normal checked on your wood texture. That'll give it a much better representation of realistic wood grain on a very fine level. Hmm. All in all, pretty good. Pretty good. I like it. Don't really see anything obviously wrong with the mesh or the textures. I think it looks pretty okay. Alright, so I think this is gonna be it. We'll take this and here in a bit we'll export this out and bring it and a few LODs into our game engine of choice, which for me is going to be Unreal Engine 4.